Hello and welcome back to Like Maria. This is another lecture in the series about poems of the decade. I'm going to talk about Julia Copus's poem An Easy Passage today. This is going to be very relevant if you are studying A-level literature on the Edexcel specification. So I'm going to talk about this poem, and the main thrust of my ideas are going to be a move from innocence to experience. I'm going to talk about three areas of the poem that I really feel highlight this shift from the innocence of childhood to the experience of adulthood. Number one, I'm going to talk about the house itself and the passage into the house and the breaking into the house and that journey. Number two, I'm going to talk about the imagery of light and how that surrounds the girls and how the girls are described. And number three, I'm going to talk about the voice in the poem that comes in the central part of the poem and asks that rhetorical question, what can she know? So three sections there, really just pulling out the key things that I am interested in this poem that I think will give you fruitful analysis. So number one, I'm going to talk about the house. And here we have in connection with this title of the poem, An Easy Passage, a way into the house is being made. Someone, her mother, has denied her the normal way into the house, which is to have the key and go in the door and go up the stairs. And the child or adolescent herself has decided that she is going to go into the house. Now, despite the title, An Easy Passage, we very quickly see that this isn't really an easy passage at all. So there is something ironic about the title there. It's not easy because we are watching her in the present tense. She is halfway up there and she's on this balance, kind of this precipitous window ledge. And so there is nothing easy about this. She has taken a risk, as teenagers do. She's going to break into the house. She wants to get into the house, presumably to go down the stairs and let her friend in the front door so they can be in the house for the day while mum's off at work. But she is wanting to break in, but it's not easy. We get this sense that it's not easy in the first 4 or 5 lines. She is having to talk to herself. What she must not do is to think of the narrow windowsill, the sharp drop of the stairwell. And in that line, we have that word drop, which is fronted on the line of poetry. And then we have the caesura after stairwell. So this is potentially a big fall. She could drop and fall and hurt herself there. So she's anxious and worried about what the passage might bring, but she's still up for the risk-taking behaviour and the fruits of what that passage, conquering that passage, may bring. Now, in terms of the house, this is clearly a metaphor for the adult world, and here perhaps an opening up of ideas of sexual development and sexual maturity. There are a couple of references that make me think this. One is when she talks about the tiny breasts. The poet mentions the tiny breasts resting lightly on her thighs. We get this, the length of her whole body leaning into the warm flank of the house. So that's suggesting kind of two bodies seeking warmth with each other. And we also get this idea that she is half in love with the other girl, and they are sneaking into the house, perhaps to discover the secrets of the adult world. So there is a sense here that they are trying to break into the house. They don't entirely know what's in the house. We're not explicitly allowed to know what's in the house, but there is this sense of breaking in and going into this house, and that there will be something pleasurable to be achieved. On the back of that, talking about the light imagery, these children are described as bathed in light. We have the sense here that both girls are lit as if from within. Their hair and the gold stud earrings in the first one's ears, for now the house exists only for them. So the gold stud earrings, their hair, they're lit from within, they're glowing with the light of perhaps expectation, but also the light of innocence. We get this towards the end of the poem as well, shielding her eyes to gaze up at the pale calf. A silver anklet, shimmering oyster painted toenails, and they catch the light briefly. So this poem is flecked with moments of light. How does it end? It ends with the girl dropping gracefully into the shade of the house. And I feel here that there is a tone of extinguishing the light, a tone of what they're doing is going to prevent them from having this glittery childhood of the painted toenails and the gold earrings and the blonde hair. There is a dampening of all this sparkliness. And this, of course, is a very familiar image of moving from innocence to experience, the lightness of the innocence of youth, shrouded and covered by the darkness of experience. So here there is this idea that the brilliance of youth, if you like, is going to be darkened. Okay, and thirdly, I'm going to talk about the intrusive voice of the narrator. So the structure of this poem is such that the narrator talks in detail about what's happening to the child who's dropping into the house, but then pauses about a third of the way through, and I'm just going to read that section for you. Her tiny breasts rest lightly on her thighs. So there's description there, but then she cuts away in the middle of a line. What can she know of the way the world admits us less and less the more we grow? For now both girls seem lit as if from within. So there's that interjection there of this philosophical statement, and there is a ruefulness and almost a frustration there. The world admits us less and less. So here we have a description of a child trying to be admitted to the house, trying to be admitted to the adult world, but the narrator here is stopping and saying, actually, the adult world is not good. It excludes us. It admits us less and less the more we grow. Perhaps this is referring to the growth of identity, perhaps the growth of identity of a female, and how women are often not admitted into spaces that are controlled. Perhaps it is that more we think, the less carefree we are. We can't take this risk-taking behaviour, and we are therefore restricted, rather like Blake's mind-forged manacles that we have experienced in the poem London. That there is something that preventing us from the joy and the freedom of life. And the narrator here then goes on to talk about the misery of adult life. The workers go about their business in the drab electroplating factory over the road. There is a drabness to adult life, and the secretary is looking for hope. She's looking for the astrology columns because she's not satisfied with actual life. She's looking to try and do something with the future. She's not content in adult life. And that these children are far away from that adult life at the moment, but there is an ominous sense of this is what is going to come for them. But then we get this flip back to the joyfulness of the moment and in return to the metaphor of the house again, which I think is to some degree sort of hopeful. But as I've said in an earlier comment, that dropping gracefully into the shade of the house suggests that she's going to be enveloped in the shade and that there is a darkness that is going to descend. Okay, they're my 3 points for this poem. I hope you find them useful. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for another poem of the decade.